Isn't it inevitable that the government will remain silent considering the national interest? Does anything get away with saying it's in the national interest? I'm not saying it gets away with it, but isn't that how diplomacy works for small countries? They can't act on pretty talk like strong countries. But isn't South Korea always making sharp statements? Hello, this is Moko. Even if you paint your country with strong words, the reality is that the answer is quietly revealed in numbers. In South Korea, where democracy, economic growth, and the future of young people are all beginning to waver, one young man is forced to confront the contradictions that his country holds. Please watch until the end. 1. The discomfort of a silent country. My name is Uno. I'm a 32-year-old reporter working for an economic media outlet in Seoul. I studied international politics at university, and since getting a job I've been following the South Korean economy and diplomacy ever since. To be honest, I think I used to be quite naive. South Korea is a country that has one democracy. South Korea is a country that values human rights. South Korea is a country that is superior to Japan in terms of morality. That's what I believed. I grew up hearing similar words at school, on TV, and in the newspapers. So, to me, South Korea was always on the right side. But after I started seeing the scene as a reporter, that assumption gradually crumbled. One day, when I arrived at the editorial office, Ji-hoo, my senior in charge of international news, was staring at the monitor with a stern expression. Uno, did you see this? What is it? It's a humanitarian issue where countries are all sacrificing their lives. The screen showed the lives of countries such as the United States, Japan, Europe, Canada, and Australia. The content was a condemnation of the oppression and other violence occurring in a certain country. It seemed natural that the international community would speak out in unison about the violence against citizens, the news crews, and the harsh treatment of those arrested. As I read the material for the article, I suddenly felt something was off. The lives of the South Korean government? No. At least for now, there has been no noticeable reaction. I was momentarily speechless. South Korea is a country that usually speaks strongly about democracy and human rights. Even domestic politicians often use words like universal values and justice in their speeches. And yet, when the world was speaking out about humanitarian issues, South Korea alone was strangely quiet. Of course, there are reasons for diplomacy. Economic relations, trade, energy, corporate profits. Countries are not driven by ideals alone. I knew that much, but a country that usually talks about morality so much falls silent when it really needs to speak up. That just didn't look good to me. During my lunch break, I went to a cafe near the office with my colleague Soyo. Soyo was a political reporter and was a much more realistic thinker than me. Isn't it inevitable that the government would remain silent if we consider national interests? Does anything get away with saying it's in the national interest? I'm not saying it does. But that's just how diplomacy works for small countries. We can't act on a tightrope like a strong country. But South Korea is always talking about tightrope issues. Soyo took a sip of her coffee and lowered her eyes slightly. That's the problem. Their words are too big. That one word stuck in my mind for some reason. Their words are too big. They were right. We've talked about ourselves as if we were the victors of democracy. We've prided ourselves on past movements and repeatedly praised the history of citizens who fought against power. We've used history and morality to hurl strong words at Japan. But now, when it comes to people suffering from religious beliefs, they prioritize economic calculations and remain silent. That was different from the image of Korea that I had believed in. That evening, the editorial office came up with a plan for a special feature. Uno, I want you to write an article. What is the theme? The reality of South Korean diplomacy. Tell me about human rights, the economy, feelings toward Japan, and the consciousness of young people. It's quite broad. It's so broad that you should look into it. South Korea today is bubbling with contradictions all at once. I nodded silently. At that moment, I somehow understood. This is not just international news. It's a story that calls into question the gap between the words and actual actions that South Korea has built up over many years. And these contradictions don't end with diplomacy. I felt that the same shadow was being cast over everything. Town businesses, the lives of young people, future pensions, and the country's finances. I opened my interview notebook and wrote this on the first page. Can a country that talks about justice really choose justice? My investigation began with searching for the answer to that question. To what remains after No Japan, the first place I headed to was an old shopping street in Seoul. It used to be lined with cafes and miscellaneous goods stores for young people, and was crowded with people on weekends, but now the street was filled with autumn stores. Some stores had old posters on their shutters, and only their signs were still colorful. What I wanted to cover was the influence of the No Japan movement. At that time, the town was filled with an unusual passion. Don't buy Japanese products, don't travel to Japan, and stores that sell Japanese-style items are shameful. Such words were all over SNS. At first, it was supposed to be a political lecture. But before I knew it, Japanese companies were not the only targets. Even cafes with Japanese-style interiors, sweets made with matcha, and products with Japanese-sounding names became targets of criticism. I decided to meet up again with a female store friend I had met at the time, for whom I had written a small article at the time. My friend's store was located at the back of the shopping street. It used to be a regular Korean-style cafe, but now it has become a Japanese-style cafe with a wood grain counter, eagle-style lighting, and a menu of matcha lattes and hojicha puddings. The inside of the store was bustling with young people, students taking photos, office workers quietly reading books, couples enjoying themselves as if they were traveling abroad. In a street full of old Aki shops, that shop alone seemed bright. Long time no see, Unoki-chan. Your shop has changed a lot. If it hadn't changed, it would have closed down. She laughed, but there was a hint of it in her expression. My friend's shop was originally popular for its matcha-based drinks, but when the No Japan movement spread, it was criticized on social media for pandering to Japan, and became a traitorous cafe. Posts like, "Don't go if you're Korean," spread, and the number of customers dropped dramatically. It was scary. I wasn't doing any political activities. I was just serving food that I thought was delicious. And yet I was criticized. Yes. So I took all the matcha items off the menu at one point. As a result, sales dropped. Regular customers also left. Everyone is honest. They just wanted delicious drinks, not politically correct drinks. Those words carried a lot of weight. The word patriotism destroyed the business scene. And it wasn't just Japanese companies that were destroyed. It was small shops run by Koreans themselves. To make matters worse, the Kona disaster came after that. Restrictions on going out, shortened business hours, and a sharp decline in customers. Added to that was the increase in labor costs. I thought it was impossible. I even considered closing down. So you changed it to a Japanese style? My brother went there after returning from a trip to Japan. He said that Japanese cafes are quiet, polite, and have no wasted space. It was frustrating to hear that, but I thought I had no choice but to learn. I looked around the store. It certainly had a calm, Japanese atmosphere. But it wasn't just a copycat. It also incorporated the photogenic style that young Koreans like. At first I was scared. I thought I'd be criticized again. But in fact, the opposite happened. Customers came back. Far from coming back. Young people posted about it on social media, and there was a line. I looked at the customers lining up outside the window. A few years ago, something that was criticized just for being Japanese style has now become a trend. Uniqlo and Muji are once again accepted as normal among young people, as are anime, music, cosmetics, and food. Japanese culture has slipped back into our lives, bypassing the political anger. What do you think of the current trend, my friend? I think everyone is tired. It takes a lot of energy to keep hating something. Physical strength? Yes, if it keeps happening, it will make your own life difficult. A society that can't say good things are good is suffocating. Hearing those words, I wrote in my notebook. I didn't enrich my life for half a day. Korean society has long confirmed its own correctness by denying Japan. However, in real life, many people are attracted to Japanese quality and culture. This contradiction is gradually surfacing among the younger generation. As I was leaving the store, I said quietly, I don't think Japan is always right, but I realized that if I brought my dislike into business, I would be destroyed. Quote. I nodded. It wasn't the politicians who paid the price for bringing problems between countries into individual lives. It was the town's lord, the working young people, and the ordinary citizens. And isn't this pattern spreading to the entire economy? I was beginning to feel that way. From here, the story changes its setting from the town's cafe to the country's wallet. Behind the back of the hands of those who drink matcha, the huge bills of pensions, medical care, and a low birth rate were quietly piling up. A country that young people no longer believe in. After leaving my friend's store, I met my friend from college, Suchi. He quit his job at a major company and is now preparing to move overseas. The meeting place was a small bar in Gohan. It was crowded with office workers on their way home from work, but there was a certain tiredness in the air. It's been a while. The reporter looks busy. I heard you quit your job too. Yeah, I've had enough of being wasted in Korea. He said it as if he was joking, but his eyes weren't smiling. Yun graduated from a famous university and joined a large company. His annual salary isn't bad. He's normally considered a successful person. Even so, he said he couldn't see a future where he could have a family in Korea. Is it really that bad? It is. Even if his salary goes up, he can't buy a house. The cost of raising children is too much to bear. I don't think I'll get my pension back even if I pay it. Is it a suspicion about pensions? It's more than a suspicion. I think our generation is just paying for the escape funds of the older generation. I kept quiet. I've heard those words many times from young people these days. Even if I pay, I won't get my money back. I can't trust the system. It's better to move my assets overseas on my own than to rely on the country. Everyone around me has US stocks and crypto assets. People who don't believe in O are rare. He swirled the ice in his glass. Even though I'm a Korean citizen, I don't want to put my assets in Korea. That's the truth. A chill ran down my spine. Maybe this is what it means to lose trust in a country. It's not like government officials are going up in flames. It's not like the national flag is going to disappear. It's just that the people are quietly losing faith in the currency and system of the time. That's what I'm most afraid of. The next day, I visited a university professor who specializes in aging issues. There were several population pyramid graphs posted on the walls of his lab. Korea's crisis won't come suddenly. It's already begun. A low birth rate and aging population? Yes. However, the problem isn't the aging itself, but the speed. The professor pointed to a graph. It showed a forecast that Korea's aging rate would increase at the old rate. Japan is also aging. However, Japan has spent a long time adjusting its systems. Korea's preparation period was too short. An aging society arrived before the pension system had matured. That's right. The professor's voice was calm, but the content was serious. The elderly population is increasing. The working age population is decreasing. Medical and nursing care costs are increasing. The burden on pensions is also increasing. And yet young people are avoiding marriage and childbirth. In other words, the number of people supporting people is decreasing and the number of people being supported is increasing. What will happen if things continue like this? Tax increases, benefit cuts, and raising the pension age. If that is still not enough, the only option is to lower the quality of medical care and welfare. Is that politically possible? It's not about whether it is possible or not. If there are no funds, the options will disappear. The options will disappear. His words were cold. Politicians often say that they choose for the people. But when they are truly cornered, the country may not choose but be chosen. When I left the lab, I had a message from Doan. He's going to Canada next month to check things out. I don't know if he'll come back. I couldn't move for a while, just holding my smartphone. Young people don't trust the country. They don't have children. They move their assets abroad. Their talents also move abroad. It's not just a matter of individual choices. It was the sound of the foundation of the country quietly crumbling away from the inside. For the more I researched about elderly Koreans who are not the same as those in Japan, the more I kept coming across a phrase. Japan is the same. Politicians, commentators, and internet users all use this phrase when they are in trouble. Japan is also aging. Japan is also experiencing low growth. Japan is also running a fiscal deficit. So it's not just Korea that is in danger. At first glance, these words sound reassuring. But as I continued my research, I began to feel that they were actually dangerous. Japan is similar to Korea, but they are not the same. I spoke to a Korean researcher who lived in Japan for a long time to find out the differences. Japan is also full of problems, but the nature of the crisis is different from Korea. The nature of the crisis. Japan has been struggling for a long time, so it has been gradually adjusting its systems. Should I say that it has become accustomed to the pain? Korea needs major surgery before it becomes accustomed to the pain. That phrase was easy to understand. Japan is certainly in the midst of a battle with an aging population. There are concerns about pensions. The burden of expenses is also increasing. The depopulation of rural areas is also serious. But society is still moving. The trains run on time, convenience stores are stocked with products, and hospitals and government offices are functioning. It's not perfect, but it hasn't collapsed. On the other hand, South Korea, which does not yet have a high aging rate like Japan, is already crying out for pensions, healthcare, housing, education, and employment. In other words, South Korea is losing its physical strength from a young age. From a young age, so does that mean South Korea is losing its physical strength from a young age? Yes. Moreover, the rate of the declining birth rate is unusually fast. He spread out the materials. Declining birth rate, fewer marriages, young people entering the workforce, the burden of housing prices, just the numbers lined up made it seem as if society was fatigued. South Korean youth are exhausted by competition. Money and mental strength are drained at each stage of life. College, employment, housing, marriage, education costs. That's why they can't have children. It's not that they don't want to have children, but that many people can't have them. Those words overlap with what Rohyun had said. South Korean youth aren't talking about extravagance. They just work normally, have a normal house, get married normally, and raise children normally. That normal has become too expensive. In the evening, I stopped by my parents' house. My mother was watching TV while preparing dinner. You've been looking gloomy lately. When I was doing interviews, there was little positive news, and I was just bad-mouthing the country again. I'm not bad-mouthing it, I'm just looking at the reality. Korea has overcome many crises. It has overcome wars and transit systems. There were a lot of young people back then. Today's young people are weak. It's not that they're weak, it's that the burden they're carrying is too heavy. My mother remained silent. I didn't say anything more. Different generations see different things. For my mother's generation, Korea was a story of success that emerged from poverty. If you work hard, you'll be rewarded. The country will grow. The children's generation will become even richer. But for our generation, Korea is a different story. Even if you work hard, home is far away. Even if you work hard, the future is uncertain. Even if you pay into the pension, it's unbelievable. The country may seem to be growing, but your life doesn't get any easier. I went back to my room and wrote this in my notebook. The words, Japan is the same, are not reassuring. They're just ignoring the problem. What Korea really needs to look at is not looking down on Japan. They need to calmly analyze the differences between Japan and themselves, but that's not easy. Because for a long time, it was difficult for Korean society to see Japan correctly. To admit is to lose, to learn is to surrender, to evaluate is to sell. This kind of atmosphere has prevented even necessary learning. And the price of this will now weigh heavily on the entire nation. I was beginning to believe so. Now, let's finally talk about the future. Pensions, young people, businesses, currency. When seemingly separate anxieties come together into a single line, Uno realizes the true fear of the country. 5. Wallets and talent fleeing. As I continued my interviews, I noticed a strange commonality. Young people don't talk about the future of Korea. What they talk about is how to distance themselves from Korea. Invest in overseas stocks. Learn English. Aim to work overseas. Send your children to international schools. Look for places to immigrate. Shift the focus of your life abroad without changing your nationality. It wasn't anything conspicuous. It wasn't a movement to overthrow the country. It was just a quiet retreat. I met Haley, a junior who works at an IT company. She was 29 years old and an excellent engineer. She plans to move to Singapore next year. Are you quitting your job? I am negotiating to move from a Korean corporation to an overseas base. The choice to stay in Korea is weak because there is no reason to stay. My family, my parents, are against it. But it's my life. She was calm. It's not that she is unpatriotic. It's not that she hates Korea. She just doesn't feel like entrusting her future to Korea. She is worried about pensions and healthcare. Housing prices are too high. If she has children, she is afraid in Korea. She is afraid because she will be caught up in competition. She doesn't want her children to go through the same competition that she suffered. I couldn't say anything. The more talented people in Korean society, the more exhausted they are. People who have worked hard to get to the top know the hardships of this society, and they try to use their abilities to go abroad. The same goes for companies. Chaebol companies are the pillars of the Korean economy. But these pillars don't just stand in the country. Production bases, research facilities, investment destinations, and markets all spread out around the world. If the domestic market shrinks, the labor force decreases, and political risk increases, companies will naturally choose more stable locations. I spoke to economic analyst Jung De-cho. You shouldn't expect patriotism from companies. Companies will move to places where they can survive. Will their headquarters move overseas? Not anytime soon. But it's entirely possible that core functions will move overseas. What will be left of Korea then? The elderly, debt, empty stores, and past success stories. The answer was brutal. I walked through Seoul at night on my way home. The lights of the skyscrapers were beautiful, and the city still looked prosperous. There were young people in the cafes, luxury cars on the roads, and potassium phosphide stars laughing in the advertisements. But the foundations beneath that scene may be more fragile than we thought. The collapse of a nation is not when the flag suddenly comes down. It's when people lose faith. It's when wallets run away. It's when talented young people stop coming back. It's when companies quietly shift their focus. And the last people left are left to foot the bills. I called Dae-yeon. Are you really leaving? I'm still undecided. Don't you feel like you're abandoning Korea? I didn't abandon it. I feel like we were the ones who were abandoned first. Those words pierced my heart. It's not that young people have abandoned the country. The country has failed to adequately protect the future of young people. That's why young people are looking for a way out to protect themselves. I couldn't blame them for that. 6. Trust over correctness. As the deadline for the feature article approached, I visited my friend's cafe once again. The shop was still crowded. As I watched young people sipping matcha tea, I thought about the contradictions of this country. In politics, they criticize Japan, but in daily life, they enjoy Japanese culture. They are proud of their democracy, but when they really should be speaking out, they remain silent. They proudly claim to be an advanced country, but young people don't trust the country's system. All of these seem like separate issues, but they all have the same root. Words and reality are too far apart. It's hard to put together an article. The more I write, the darker it becomes. If the reality is dark, then I have no choice but to write about it, right? Readers might not like it, but lying would be even worse. That was right. What Korea needs isn't strong words. It's not bashing Japan or boasting about past successes. First, it's about looking at reality. I returned to the editorial office and started writing the article. The headline read, "What South Korea is losing is not its population but trust." The text includes voices heard during interviews. The No Japan movement that destroyed businesses. A cafe that has embraced Japanese culture and been reborn. Young people who don't believe in pensions. Talent headed overseas. A society that claims to be the same as Japan but refuses to learn from Japan. And a government that talks about morality and diplomacy but remains silent in the face of profit. I myself struggled while writing the article. It's not that I hate South Korea. Rather, it's precisely because I love it that I couldn't pretend not to see it. Loving your country doesn't mean believing only convenient stories. I thought it was cruel to admit that something is wrong when it's wrong. Late at night, the editorial office read my current article. That's tough. Can't you go along with it? No, I will. But there will be backlash. I understand. They might say I'm better than Japan. That's fine. Why go to such lengths? I don't mean to say that Japan is right. I just think it's dangerous for South Korea to continue running away from reality. So when the article was published, the reactions were, as expected, divided. Traitorous reporters, don't flatter Japan, don't write bad things about South Korea. There were many comments like that. On the other hand, I also received different voices from young readers. They wrote what they had been feeling all along. Life won't improve in just half a day. They want to see reality because they want to believe in their country. I felt a little relieved while reading those comments. Change doesn't happen immediately. Years of education and emotions don't disappear easily. It's easier for politicians and the media to create convenient enemies. But somewhere, someone is starting to see reality. There are people like Hae Jin Shop who choose charm over hatred. There are people like Hai Rin who try to protect their own future. There are people like Do Yun who speak their minds even though they are disappointed in their country. For Korea to truly change, they must first abandon the old yardstick of beating Japan. And they need to calmly review their own systems, economy, society, and diplomacy. Build trust rather than shout about what is right. Protect your livelihood rather than incite anger. Design the future rather than exploit the past. If they can't do that, the crisis of the 2040s will become a reality, not just a prediction. At the end of the article, I wrote this. It's not the enemy who will destroy the country. It's ourselves who don't see reality. What did you think? Mr. Uno looked at the darkness that has accumulated in the country of South Korea. A diplomacy that talks about human rights and principles but remains silent when it is inconvenient. A daily life that denies Japan but is attracted to Japanese culture and products. A society that is proud of its growth but where young people have lost sight of the future. What is truly frightening is not a sudden collapse. It is the fact that the people gradually lose faith in the system. Young people give up on the future, and companies and assets quietly move overseas. These changes are not flashy, but they surely weaken the foundations of the country. What South Korea needs is not words to blame someone, but the courage to face and acknowledge its own reality. Diverting the focus of the country with a half-day hiatus will not solve the problems of a declining birth rate and an aging population or pension concerns. Boasting about past successes will not lead to protecting the system of the future. Trust cannot be realized in a day, but collapse can happen in the blink of an eye. Which is why what a country should really protect is not its reputation but its way of life, and not anger but an attitude of looking to the future. Please let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comments. Thank you for watching until the end. See you in the next video. I've told you about the current state of the Korean economy. I'm sure you're a little tired from all the information. From here on, I'll be sharing some special, heartwarming episodes that will gently touch your hearts. I hope you'll take a deep breath and watch with a calm mind. Here we go. Please be a little more selective about who you choose to stay with. We come here once a year, but we've never had anything like this happen to us. When you're feeling tired, sometimes you feel like going to a hot spring, right? Taking a bath in a hot spring will soothe your fatigue and give you the energy to keep going, right? This time, I'll be sharing the story of a black woman from America who visited a hot spring inn in Japan. Apparently, the woman from Korea started getting angry as soon as she saw the American woman and demanded that she be kicked out because she was unpleasant. It seems that the American woman couldn't hide her surprise at what God did after that. What kind of response did she have? Please watch until the end. My name is Lily. I'm African American. I live an ordinary, everyday life. Ordinary? Well, for us Black people, even being discriminated against can be considered ordinary. It's that essential to life. Recently, I had to go to Japan for work. To be honest, I was worried. My colleagues around me kept saying that Japan was the best, but I still felt uneasy. I'd never been to Asia before, and this time I was staying for a month. That's why I asked the company to put someone who could speak English by my side in Japan. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do anything. Even if I was given time to study Japanese, my colleagues said that Japanese is apparently the best language in the world. There's no way I could learn it. When I was feeling anxious, the company told me to rest assured that they would assign an interpreter, so that made me feel a little more at ease. And then the day I left for Japan arrived. I greeted the interpreter, and she was a very nice, gentle woman. She was always there to help me when I was in trouble, and the Japanese people were incredibly kind. I was living a life where I forgot all about discrimination. Ah, so that's why everyone was saying that Japan was the best. That's what I felt. And after a week in Japan, I was sent on a business trip. The company I work for, which deals in cosmetics, was going to hold a big event. It seemed like a really big venue, so I was excited. And when the event started, the Japanese women who would ask me all sorts of questions asked me, "Where are you from?" America. America is amazing. By the way, what kind of makeup is popular in America? Quote, they asked me questions like that. To be honest, no one in America ever asks me about makeup. Everyone goes to white people to ask questions. I always felt really lonely. I really like makeup. Every day I think about what kind of makeup would suit me, and while watching TV I think about how this person's hair would grow more if they did this makeup. My dream is to one day provide cosmetics to celebrities walking the red carpet, so this business trip to Japan really helped me realize my hobby. Many people asked me questions after hearing my makeup advice. And with that advice, the cosmetics sold like hotcakes. To be honest, I was surprised. It was so different from America. In America, no one would talk to me, but in Japan, there was a long line of people waiting to hit the bat. I never thought people would be so open to Black people. I was so happy that the interpreter even asked me to teach her some makeup tips later. But at the same time, I was a little embarrassed because I was getting so many compliments. And the event ended without a hitch. The company gave me a stay at a luxury inn to celebrate the success of the event. Apparently, our booth had become a hot topic online due to record sales, and they had received offers to cover the event and use our makeup products at a fashion award show. They said it was all thanks to me, so they took me along, but I decided to go with the interpreter. I went into the inn with the interpreter, Miyu. From now on, I'll call you by your name. Then, out of the blue, a woman in a kimono spoke to me. I'm the manager of this inn. Welcome today. Please make yourself comfortable. Quote. I was surprised by her polite response. Miyuki said that this inn is famous for its open-air bath. In America, people often just take a shower when they bathe, and there's no culture of soaking in a tub. So I was excited about my first time at a hot spring, but I forgot something important. Oh no, I didn't bring a swimsuit. It's fine because you don't wear swimsuits at Japanese hot springs. Then people might see me naked. I'll tell Miyu that it'll be fine. No one will be watching. That's what she said, but I'm a little worried. I'm different from everyone else. But this is not the time to be worrying about that. I hurried to the room I was shown to. Here, the landlady showed me around the room. Thanks to her detailed explanation, I've mastered this room perfectly. And the open-air bath at this hotel is popular. The water is a simple, carefully selected, flowing water that is mild, gentle on the skin, and non-irritating. I hope you'll come and relax your mind and body. That's what she said, to be honest. I heard a lot of words I didn't understand, like simple, carefully selected, flowing water, but in any case, it's a wonderful hot spring. I'm looking forward to it. Apparently, there are 3 main effects of this hot spring. The first is the thermal effect. When you soak in the hot spring, your body warms up and your blood vessels, especially your peripheral blood vessels, dilate. When your blood vessels dilate, your blood circulation improves, making it easier for fresh blood containing oxygen and nutrients to circulate throughout your body. This activates the function of transporting waste products and carbon dioxide in the blood. In other words, it improves metabolism and promotes the discharge of unnecessary substances from the body. Of course, it also discharges acid, which causes fatigue, so it can be expected to have a fatigue recovery effect. In addition, there is something called the water pressure effect, which is an effect that occurs when the surface of the body is subjected to water pressure called the balanced water pressure when soaking in the bathtub, which applies pressure to the entire body. The balanced water pressure stimulates the internal organs and the entire body, and by exercising, you can naturally receive a gentle massage effect throughout your entire body. Apparently, the reason you naturally exhale when soaking in the bathtub is because the balanced water pressure causes your stomach and buttocks to shrink. And finally, there is the limp effect. When you soak in a hot spring, your weight feels lighter due to the limpness in the water. If you soak up to your neck in the hot spring, your weight will be reduced to about 1/2, allowing you to move your body freely. This reduces the strain on the joints and muscles that support your weight, allowing your entire body to relax. Also, as your body becomes lighter, your muscles relax, which causes the brainwaves you emit to be in an alpha state, making it easier for not only your body but also your brain to relax. It seems like there are a lot of benefits. I was surprised because I didn't know it had so many effects. I headed to the open-air bath, looking forward to feeling the many effects. By the time I entered the open-air bath, I was so moved by the comfort of the hot spring that I had forgotten I was naked. Miyu and I got ready and headed to the open-air bath. It was just Miyu and I in the open-air bath, so it was practically all to ourselves. I felt somewhat at ease with just Miyu. The view was amazing, and the wind wafted with a very refreshing scent. The hot spring water was also smooth, and I was relaxing comfortably while talking to Miyu about the event. Then, 2 women who looked like tourists came in. Miyu said that they were speaking Korean, not Japanese, so they must be Korean. They seemed to be regulars here. Miyu said that it seemed like she had been here many times. Then, as soon as one of them saw me, she looked surprised and started talking to the other woman. What's going on? I never thought I'd meet a black man in such a high-class inn. I can't believe it. That person is just wasting their money and staying here. We came all this way to relax, but the scenery and the hot springs are ruined because of that person. The two of them had been talking in Korean until just now, but for some reason they started talking in English so that I could hear them. This kind of thing happens almost every day in America. It's a regular occurrence. I let myself go and regained my composure. Then the landlady came over. "How are you feeling?" The Korean woman said, "Hey, landlady, please be a little more selective about who you let stay with. We come to this inn once a year, but we've never experienced anything like this before." I could tell that she was being insulted. I've been discriminated against many times in America. So I could tell from the atmosphere there, even without Miyu-san translating. Taking advantage of the fact that I didn't say anything back, they got more and more cocky. They pointed at me and said, "I don't want to go to a hot spring with someone like that in it." Then the landlady said, "That might be true." There was a short period of silence. That silence made me very anxious. "Thank you for coming today. I wanted to stay in the hot spring for a long time, so I thought it was a shame, but I had to get out of the bath, so I stood up." "Then, what's wrong, sir? Enjoy the hot spring at your leisure. I hope you don't have any dreams." Then, she told me that I could stay in the hot spring. I asked Miyu if I didn't need to get out. But Miyu nodded repeatedly, so I guess I didn't need to. The Korean woman and I were confused about what was going on. "I'm grateful that you like our hot spring and have come back many times, but I would like to take your valuable opinion into consideration. Thank you for coming every year. However, our inn would like to ask guests who judge people by their appearance, let alone those who ruin the atmosphere of this inn and cause inconvenience to other guests, to refrain from coming." The proprietress was asking the Korean tourists who were sheltering me to leave, not me. Of course, the Korean tourists who were not satisfied said, "Wait a minute. I don't think they are trying to kick us out, but we are trying to kick them out." Quote. She didn't seem to understand what the landlady meant because she spoke in a calm tone. I could tell because their voices were trembling. "That's right. It's you who we would like you to refrain from coming." The landlady looked at them firmly and told them. Seeing this, they fell silent. Several of the street bros who were there were getting restless. The cold stares around them were directed at them, not at me. Then one of the Koreans said, "You should leave now." With that, the other said, "Let's leave this place. God, we're going to post what we experienced today on the internet. Be prepared," and put on his shoes and left. Then, feel free to do as you please. From now on, I will add this to the promises for those who use this hot spring. We never want customers like you who make other customers feel uncomfortable to use our hot spring again. We respectfully decline. The landlady firmly told them without changing her opinion. The two of them ran out, saying something in a low voice. And when they left, the landlady gave a round of applause. "We apologize for causing such a commotion. I apologize for making everyone feel uncomfortable. Please take your time and relax in the mud bath." I was very happy with the landlady's response. But there was a part of me that thought, if I hadn't come here, this wouldn't have happened. I'm sorry, landlady. I'm sorry that my presence has made the atmosphere of the inn worse, even though I'm a regular customer. But I was very happy. Thank you. Even though I apologized myself, I felt a bit sad. To be honest, I've experienced similar discrimination in the past. But there was no one who would change like this, so I never apologized, and it makes me feel a little pathetic to put into words the fact that I'm being discriminated against. Miyu looked at me and gradually explained to the landlady in Japanese. Then the landlady said, "Please don't say such things, sir. It feels like my feelings have been denied." Quote. When she said that, I had a question mark in my head. Maybe she was actually angry with me. Did you think I was trying to kick you out just now because I listened to what they said? You were trying to get out of the bath at that time, weren't you? The landlady continued talking while I was being looked down upon by her words. Lily-sama, you may have been stepping back and keeping things calm up until now. I understand that situation. Of course, I'm not close enough to Lily-sama to imagine your past life. I can't just say anything about your life. But one thing I can say for sure is that you are an important guest to our inn. So I don't think it's right for you to assume that I'm black and lose confidence in yourself. Lily-sama, you thought I was a discriminatory person, didn't you? Isn't that why you tried to leave the open-air bath? That makes me very sad. And angry. I was shocked when I heard those words. I may have done something very unfair to the landlady. I was so desperate to protect myself that I couldn't understand her feelings. Landlady, I'm so sorry. When I bowed my head, God left the restaurant with a gentle tone and a smile, saying, "I will prepare dinner for you." The other customers also entered slowly. They spoke to me without any discrimination, regardless of where I came from. After that, we had a delicious meal, and before I knew it, it was time to check out. It was a wonderful experience in a fun and relaxing space. It was a very good experience. In the taxi to the airport, I thought to myself, in America, people often speak harshly to you or refuse to serve you just because you are black when you try to enter a restaurant or hotel. I often think that if I hadn't gone outside, I wouldn't have experienced this. Quote. It is said that there are fewer cases of obvious discrimination compared to the past, but there are many times when I don't think so. However, here in Japan, people treat me as a foreigner, but no one sees me as a black person. I feel happy because I can demonstrate my talents at work and am recognized by those around me. In Japan, people see me as someone with a good sense of style when it comes to choosing cosmetics, even though I am black. Honestly, when I feel that way, I want to stay in Japan forever. And then, a year later, I was honored for my achievements at an event I held at the Japan Memorial Service. And then I moved to Japan and was able to live in Japan. Up until now, I had always been discriminated against. But now I can live a very happy and relaxed life in Japan, being myself. I may be transferred to the headquarters in the US again in the future, but I want to spend my time here without forgetting the confidence I gained in Japan. What did you think? I'm glad you had a wonderful time in Japan. If we ever encounter discrimination in the city, we want to respond with the same level of determination as the landlady. Thank you for watching until the end. If you found this video interesting, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video. Video.